Welcome to the Succeed Against the Odds podcast. My name is Francesca Anastasi, also known as Sabea. I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur. I'm your host and mentor. And each week we bring you an inspiring person, an expert, or message, and some behind the scenes to help you ignite and unleash your potential. Thanks so much for listening. Welcome to another episode of the Succeed Against the Odds show. Today, as my guest, I have a gentleman, Tyler Hoffman. Welcome, Tyler.
Hey, it's so great to be here. Thank you.
I am very excited to have you as my guest today because when I looked at your application, I thought that is such a unique kind of field. You don't really say what you do. So I'm just going to ask you, what is it that you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Some days I ask myself that too. Really people come to me because they're looking to get help inside their business. And I really like to try and think of myself as the trust building expert. Because I figure, when we boil everything down, sales, marketing, referrals, all of it comes down to trust, doesn't it? And so I really like to think of myself as someone that can help entrepreneurs and solopreneurs accelerate trust building.
That's a cool. So would you say you're a consultant or a coach?
I would like to think of myself as a consultant. Yeah.
Okay. And who do you work with primarily? You're like solopreneurs or bigger companies?
Yeah. So I spent 15 years in the corporate world and had a lot of fun doing that. And I found that a lot of coaches, consultants, financial advisors, mortgage brokers, real estate agents are just underserved in business coaching. And so I've really taken this trust acceleration model into the solopreneur world.
And so what inspired you to do that?
Inspiration. I was a financial planner for 15 years. I had my own little company. And when I got started, like most of us who get started, business just never comes fast enough. And when it does, it's not big enough. And I was struggling for 2 or 3 years as a financial advisor back, around 2000. And when I finally figured out what was holding me back, it really came down to trust. It wasn't the products I was, selling. It wasn't the company that I was with. People generally liked me, but at the end of the day, there was some small amount of unintentionally misstepping in my trust building process, and it was impacting. And once I've kind of figured that out, I thought, wow, there's a whole science to trust building. And I really got curious about how this happens for us, kind of at the neuroscience level, like what goes on inside our brain around trust building and relationships. And just got really curious, and one thing led to another. And 15 years later, I decided to leave that business and that corporate world behind and become a qualified trust partner with Reina, a trust building consultancy, to really take their work and their model and get it into the hands of the people that need it the most, the people out on the front lines like us who are entrepreneurial.
But especially when you talk about trust and having to build that, like your experience being in the financial industry, there's that added element that most people are already going to be reluctant to share their personal finances with a stranger. So building that trust is even extra crucial to get customers. It's not just your regular trust from any type of vendor, but in that financial industry, it's even more so because you're looking into people's privacy.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest challenge. So many of us, and it's not just financial advisors, so many of us that come at our products and services from products and services. I'm a consultant, I sell this package, and that doesn't work. That's the 1983's approach to marketing and relationship building, and it just doesn't work. And so I needed to do something different and learn fast. Otherwise, I wasn't going to be in business. So yeah, it really came down to trust building.
So was there a specific event or a situation, something that happened that was the moment of, I got to change this? Or is it that happens just kind of over time?
Oh no, there's always a moment, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's always a moment. And I remember like it was yesterday, I was a financial advisor living at home. I was a professional baseball umpire prior to getting into the financial services industry. And I had left that career that had peaked, and I became a financial advisor. I was still living at home. 2 years into this new business, I had an appointment about 45 minutes away. And so that morning I wanted to make sure, like, every good business person does, is you make sure that the meeting is still on, especially if you're going to drive 45 minutes. So I get in my car, I drive 45 minutes, I get to the house, knock on the door, and I'm all excited. And the guy opens the door like halfway. And anytime that anybody opens the door halfway, it's never a good thing. And he just kind of poked his head out and he said, "Tyler, we're good. We don't need to see you tonight." And man, I was just like, what? Like, I just drove 45 minutes. A, B, I confirmed it this morning. And so I could have really taken that one of two ways. And initially I beat myself up, but I got back into the car and I thought, okay, well, what just happened there? Like, what is the missing ingredient? And two questions came into my head at that moment. The first question is, okay, how do I want to feel? Because I didn't want to feel that. And the second question is, who do I know that's actually gone out there and done this business before that I can learn and share where I'm at and get some insight and mentorship so that I can actually make a go of this? And on the way home, it just dawned into me that I need to have different mentorship and different leadership. I needed to kind of change my peer group in order to get the knowledge and the insight into what was holding me back as a budding young professional, 18 years ago.
That seems to be a very common theme among entrepreneurs, where we realize that it's time to up the game, and the only way to do that is by surrounding ourselves with people who are ahead of us so that we can learn from them, model them, versus being stuck around people that mean well, but they're not necessarily the right people to help us move forward in our business.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, leveling up is just the idea of, getting outside influence and inspiration from people that have done it before. And often we're not going to find that with the people that we're connected with in our normal circles. And so you got to have that courage to take that step and just be humble enough to know that you don't know everything. And, that's easier said than done.
Yes. And I find that the more we learn, the more we know nothing.
That's just it, right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's like endless, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tyler, what's at the base of building trust?
That's one of my favorite questions to ask, or to answer rather, is, what is trust? Trust, when you reduce it down to its most simplest form, trust is all about mutually serving intentions. So what is that? Mutually serving intentions is about adding value before expectation. An analogy that I love to use to kind of illustrate this is, if you look at how people post online today, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, even LinkedIn, a lot of us are good and we have good intentions. We'll post on there trying to educate and add value. But then it's kind of what I call like a marketing landmine, is all of a sudden down at the bottom of the post, we have, call me today to learn more, or I can help with that. And so we add value, and then we undercut our value by turning that value proposition into a sales landmine, a marketing landmine. Because when we say that stuff at the bottom of the post, call me today, I can help with that, or message me to learn more, it's all well intended, but really what happens is it's just like, forget everything that I just shared with you. I want to sell you a product.
And that breaks the trust.
And it just breaks it right there. And so many of us are online posting away, and it's actually repelling. It's actually repelling people away. It's not drawing people in. And so I always say to people, trust begins with us. We have to give it to get it. It's built incrementally over time. And the best way to create that is to lead always with mutually serving intentions. Your podcast is a form of that. You're leading with value before any expectation. And if people are truly interested and drawn to us, they'll ask us, how can I do that? Or what would be the next step for me to learn more? We don't always have to be telling people that we're on and we're ready to sell.
Yeah, especially because I think we're constantly bombarded with ads. And you mentioned social media. And like, I don't know about you, but my personal experience is whatever social media platform I'm looking at, I seem to be bombarded with ads and I'm constantly bypassing them. I don't even look at them. So I think when we have somebody reach us or we reach out for something and then they seem to be helping and then the next thing they're doing is they're trying to sell, it breaks that trust 10 times over because it kind of links to that same feeling of being bombarded with all the other ads. So it's not even on its own. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I mean, I've seen those ads. I've hit, register now, and I've even bought some of those programs that we see, but 90% of them, even if you're going after their free offer, you get their free value add, which is nice, but then the next day they're trying to sell you the program. And that's just not, it's not the way that entrepreneurs need to go about building the business. It's like, I don't even know you yet. Like, I got your free PDF, like, great, but I don't even know who you are and you're already pitching me your program.
Right.
Yeah, that's not leading with mutually serving intentions. Establish that relationship, build trust, and it takes longer, but at the end of the day, we would all have more clients and raving fans if we just follow that one simple little approach.
I'm glad you used the word relationship because that basically what I was going to say. I mean, it sounds like you're talking about building relationships before even going there, if not even going there. It's just naturally it will get there organically. Basically, that's what you're saying. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right. Relationships are it. And I think so many of us get excited about, going to the digital space is that you can see the scalability of it. It can be potentially, big profits, but are you in the business of building relationships? I would say that most people that are doing those online ads are not in the relationship building business. They're there to sell a product and high volume, and that's their model. Now, I'm generalizing, but we don't need to play that big of a game. You don't need as many people going through your funnels if you're building relationships properly.
So what would you advise to someone who has a business that is solely online business and they want to promote their business, obviously, and the only way they can network is online?
Mm-hmm.
How would you recommend or suggest that they could build those meaningful relationships, intentional relationships, or whichever way you want to call them, so that it's an organic transaction? I guess that's what because ultimately, if you are online, if you're doing a business, that the ultimate end goal is that at some point you do need to have a return.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm not a digital marketing specialist, but what I am a specialist in is bringing those online relationships and having them look and feel like they're an offline relationship when we use a trust model. And so I would encourage people that do have an online platform for their business to look at their funnel, but also look at the ways that which they can continually add value in a way that is going to bring that relationship forward, and look at their online experience from the standpoint of it being a trusted platform versus it being a selling platform. And if you've got that mindset, it's going to cause you to tweak your marketing campaign and your digital offerings, because it'll then be focused on building trust versus trying to sell the product.
Great advice. So in a face-to-face situation, how would you say, based on the organic experience, how long would you say is the average? And I know this, I'm probably asking an impossible question to answer because it's not like cut and dry saying you can't start a relationship. You could have, I guess, a business transaction after a week, or you could have it after months, or it could be after a few years. I know when I started my first business, it took 2 years before people came through my door. Like, that was my marketing cycle. It took that long for people to actually feel comfortable enough to come in through my brick and mortar business. So it was an interesting experience to notice that. And I think at the time I didn't have the intentional relationship building. I was just doing the marketing. And I think if I had done, the trust building first, it would have probably shortened that cycle by a lot more.
Yeah, it likely would. And I think we all have that same story and same experience to an extent. Yeah.
So what other tips could you share with us in building trust?
Collaboration. We look at collaboration as something that we sit down in that first meeting. Maybe we're doing a fact find, a discovery meeting where we're learning more about our potential client. And we do it from the standpoint of we asked all these wonderful, brilliant, insightful questions to get this information. And then we go off for a week and then we come back and we build that proposal. And while we think we're collaborating, we're really not. And so one of the challenges I try to get everybody to think about taking on is halfway through that proposal building process, invite your prospect back into the process and say, look, Mr. Prospect, here are some ideas that I'm thinking about considering for your final proposal, but I'd like to, meet with you and just see what you think. By bringing them into that process, what we're actually going to do is we're going to learn more about who they are. We're going to learn more of what they don't want. And certainly by the time we get to come back and actually physically present the pitch, so to speak, it'll already be done. They'll know exactly where we're headed and nothing will be a mystery. Nothing will be a surprise. And they will have felt a part of the process, which is one of the areas where we feel more trust for the other person is when we get that joint collaboration.
That's great. Then you have partners. It's almost like partnerships.
It is. Rather than, hey, I want to meet with you. We talked about that great strategy. Let me get some information. I'll crunch the numbers and I'll come back in a week. That is not collaboration. Many of us think of it as, but it's not. That's a sales pitch.
Yeah. You want to build that relationship with the people you collaborate with.
Yep. Totally. And yeah, a lot of people say, well, Ty, that's going to cause me to have an extra meeting. And the answer to that is, yeah, it's going to cause you to have an extra meeting, but look at the intelligence that you're going to gain from it. But look at how the relationship's also going to even get tighter. You're a true partner in that whole discovery process.
And there's so much more strength when you are partnered with other people that are aligned, right? That are on the same page with you.
Yeah, and that's how you become a trusted advisor, whatever industry you're in. That's the elevation. That's what top professionals are doing, is they're collaborating and they're always leading with mutually serving intentions.
So now that you know what you know,
yeah.
if you had to go back and start over again, what would you do differently?
Yeah, interesting way of looking at it. If I was to go back 18 years ago and tap myself on a shoulder and say, okay, Ty, you're going to have a second run at this thing called being a financial advisor, I would have really developed my story, my passion, and my why. And I would have got people involved in the story as to why I was being a financial advisor and what that work was going to do for my community and the people connected to it, and enroll people into that possibility versus doing an RSP loan.
I like that. And I like that you said you would share your why and share your story, because I find that at the bottom of it all, that's one of the key elements of building trust. If people know your story, then they can somehow connect with you better.
Absolutely. Story selling is a key way of getting those neurotransmitters in the brain firing dopamine, oxytocin, and that creates trust. So when we're in pitch mode, when we're pitching a product or a strategy, there's nothing going on there for the consumer. But if we're telling a story and sharing with them the bigger vision of what's possible, then that's a lot more powerful and a lot more fun to work in too.
Yeah, and it makes it more comfortable, I think, as well. It makes it more human.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. I never thought of it that way, but that's really a heart-centered approach to a professional relationship. People are more comfortable. They're even more comfortable referring you because of that, right? They're more easily to get behind you for your passion, your vision, and your mission versus, oh yeah, Joe just gave me an RSP loan. He could probably help you out too.
But if there's a story behind it that's shared on top of that, makes all the difference.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Wow. That is cool. I have to admit, I've never met anyone whose specialty is the trust building.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I know, it's funny how you kind of stumble into these things, but it's just a fun way of looking at business a little differently.
So is this something that you decided to create on your own, or did you see someone else do something similar and you thought that is exactly what I want to do? Like, I know that what your experience is what led you to do this, but the whole idea of being a trust building consultant.
Yeah, I think, first off, I'm I'm deeply passionate and excited about the topic. So that's easy for me to go there. Secondly, you know, as a business strategist, I'm looking at trying to differentiate myself from all the other business consultants, business coaches, business advisors. What's my unique selling proposition, right? Where do I differentiate? And so that's a space where I can hang out in that space and be different. And it also allows me to work with other business consultants and coaches who don't have this passion or discipline for trust building.
I love it. I love it that you said it is the one thing that makes you different from the others. That is so key nowadays, because especially in the consulting industry, it is a bit saturated. I mean, we're going to say it, and unless you're different, then everybody's going to sound the same.
Well, that's just it. Yeah.
Right. And people don't know who to choose, because it's like going to the supermarket and looking at a bunch of, cereal boxes, and you just go, well, they all look the same, except for the one that really stands out. They go, ooh, but that one looks different because it's got something extra or something completely different, whatever it is, right? Yeah,
no, you're totally right. And it's a space from opportunity too, as opposed to a space of lack. And I find that so many solopreneurs don't collaborate with people even from their same industry, right? So by having a differentiation like this and owning it and stepping into that, it allows me to work with other coaches too, really, really comfortably.
I love that. I really love that. It's all embracing versus being separate from the rest, but it's actually the added on collaboration possibility, which is awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Love it. Love it. So Tyler, you do events. We were chatting before we started the interview, and you said you have events. Are these on a regular basis? Can you share?
I do. Yeah, thanks for asking about that. We've just finished Unleash Your Practice, which is an annual event. We started that in Vancouver. Next year it'll be in Calgary, and then it'll go to Winnipeg and Ontario. That event is really, really geared towards the wider financial services industry. And then the other event that we do every 6 months is an event called Rock Your Niche, which is a little different format and really geared to the solopreneur. But I pop up everywhere, whether it be BNI meetup groups, Rotary functions. So chances are, if you're in Vancouver somewhere, at some point, you'll probably see me pop up.
Yeah, well, we haven't met in person yet. Well, we'll have to make that happen sometime.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
Well, Tyler, this has been amazing. If people want to get a hold of you and find out more about what you do and, how they can get your services so that you can help them if they're struggling with, they just want to learn more about this, where is the best place for them to get in touch with you?
Easiest way to get a hold of me is on my website, tylerhoffman.ca, or you can go to facebook.com/tylerhoffman.ca, and you'll find me at either of those two spots.
Perfect. And we'll have the links in the show notes so that our listeners can just click on there and reach you directly. So
excellent.
Make it nice and simple. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your insights on trust building and sharing your personal story of struggle there and how you got inspired to do what you do. It's been a true pleasure.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.